We are going to be setting up lumbar traction today. So the traction unit comes in this little setup right here. You usually want to set it up on one of the tables with the Saunders logo pointed upward. There's zippers on the side where you unzip, and then it just folds open like so. From here, we've got the straps that go around the patient's abdomen. I want to make sure that those are all laid out flat. And then just kind of in line with each other. And it has the same pump setup as the cervical traction. So it has those three settings: the middle where you pump up, the left where you lock, and to the right to release it. So it's that same kind of setup. I'm going to put a pillow here for the patient, and depending on how tall they are, you might scoot this up a little bit or scoot it down depending on how tall they are. We'll probably have it about right here. If you want to come over here, I'll have you sit. I always tell them to sit there, but kind of right on this little square portion of the traction. And then you can lay back. Okay, so whenever you're adjusting these, the abdomen kind of straps to go over, what you want to make sure is that this bottom one is at the iliac crest here, the top of the pelvis. You want to make sure that this is kind of in line below it, so this top part is kind of lining up with that. So I will cross this over, and then we are going to get these buckles, strap it in, and then also, usually before I do that, I have their feet up on a bolster. So we'll raise your feet up, and right there, just so that their back is comfortable. And then with this one, I'm gonna have this going more around her rib cage, kind of above her pelvis. So we'll do the same thing. And I usually just start with buckling the loops where they're not super tight, just kind of all connected, and then I go back through and tighten them all. They want to be pretty snug. Obviously you don't want to be preventing the person from breathing, but they do have to be pretty tight to get that traction. So if it gets too tight and you can't breathe, let me know. Shouldn't get that tight. I might go from this side. Usually hold it in place and kind of pull. The top one is the one you don't want to be way too tight because it is over their lungs, and you don't want to prevent them from breathing. All right, does that feel pretty snug but not too tight? Mm-hmm. Okay. You're so tiny. All right, and then we're gonna move it to that middle section so that we can start moving the traction. It's gonna move this gray platform downward where it's pulling on their lumbar spine to kind of create some space in between her vertebrae. So we're gonna start that. This one, you don't usually have to go as slow with the cervical one, just because it is a bigger part of the body. She should be feeling kind of her hips being pulled down a little bit. Sometimes if they feel like they're sliding down, you need to tighten the straps a little bit more. Does it feel like it's pulling? Mm-hmm. A little bit? Good. And then, so same thing with the cervical traction. We want to start out first with just a moderate stretch. You don't want to like push it to the max for the first time, and then we're going to lock it to the left. We'll leave them for the 5 minutes or however long the therapist has instructed, and then we will turn it to the right to release it. You have to kind of let the air pump out for a second. It does take a while to go all the way back in its original position without some help. So just easily, I just kind of give it a little bit of resistance there to reset back. And then once it gets pretty close to the top and the air stops flowing out, we can take them off. And so you just take them off in the opposite order you put them on. We'll undo the buckles. Make sure they can breathe. And then we can let them out. We'll take the bolster out. And then I always advise people to just kind of sit on the edge of the traction for a second just to get back kind of their wits with them. Sometimes it can make them a little dizzy. Make sure there's no discomfort. If they did have discomfort, relay that to the therapist.